So now that we are clear about it, let's take the next step. What is the importance of forest in our planet, right? The most first and foremost and the most important point is that it maintains the balance of gases, right? So Priscilla, will you be able to discuss and give some points? How does it maintain gases? How do forests maintain the balance of gases?
Ma'am, as we are living in cities, ma'am, we produce a lot of waste and mainly carbon dioxide because of the vehicles. And this carbon dioxide is not it's supposed to be in little amounts, but because of the huge amounts, it's not very good for us.
Correct.
But the plants, they need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, so they use the carbon dioxide, thus like keeping control the percentage of carbon dioxide.
Correct, correct. Very good. So basically, you know, we especially living in cities, right? Living in cities, we do not have much greenery, right? So normally it is always seen that most of these states like West Bengal, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, you know, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, all of them would have certain forest areas, you know, which the government has also said that, you know, there would be some reserved forest areas. What do they mean by reserved forest areas? They mean
And
that
that they should never cut it.
yes, correct. So, you know, you must have seen when you must have gone to some, you know, for vacation or something, you will find certain trees, you know, those trees are painted, you know, till this portion they are painted maybe white in color, right?
Yes,
That,
ma'am.
and they are being numbered also. For example, 131. That means this is a property of the government of India. This belongs to the forest area. This tree cannot be cut. Whoever cuts the tree will be prosecuted, will be, you know, will have to undergo certain legal procedures, right? So not necessary that these trees will be inside the forest only. These could be, you know, in the road leading to the forest, or maybe, you know, they could be, these trees could also be found in certain mountainous areas, right? Because it's time that the government understand that, you know, between the city and the forest, there's a huge difference, there's a huge gap. So, you know, there has to be trees even in the cities or in the neighboring of the cities, which has to be like, you know, protected. Otherwise, you know, the city, the people living in the city will not get sufficient oxygen supply. And the time or the amount of oxygen which will have to transfer from the forest to the city will be less, because there is a lot of deforestation happening even in the forests, right? And that's the reason why the government, you know, whichever, you know, wherever, you know, the high rises are coming up. For example, this is a high rise, right? Every high rise building that's coming up needs to have 40% of green area, or they need to have 40% of greenery. Otherwise, they will not allow the builder to build high rises. So they need to have, you know, certain amount, maybe, you know, 10% could be a park. Out of this 40%, you know, 30% could be a garden, right? Or if this is 20%, another 10% could be a walking or a jogging track, which would be lined with plants and trees. So unless and until the area, the premises has 40% of green patch, the municipal corporation will not allow it to build a building. The residents will not be able to shift. So this is the amount of importance that's been given on greenery, right? So why? What is the reason for that? Because all the carbon dioxide, you know, that comes out from a city, it is through human beings, it is through, you know, vehicles, it is through all the electronical gadgets that we use. There's a huge amount of carbon dioxide which comes out from the city, right? And where does it go? It all goes to the forests or the, you know, nearby plants or nearby garden or the nearby green patch that's there. And that instead sends oxygen to us. So it actually maintains in balance of the gases, right? So that is the importance of the plants. Now, the second point is it checks pollution, right? So, Unmana, would you be able to emphasize on this point? How does forest check pollution?
Ma'am, can you repeat the question?
How can a forest check pollution? Pollution is happening in, cities. How can forests check pollution?
I think like forest can check because in forest we do not have like vehicles. They produce harmful gases, right? So like in forest we do not have such vehicles to like pollute the air. So I think that there is no pollution in the forest, and like there is fresh air, and so that's why like we can check pollution in the forest because there is no pollution. So that's what I think.
Okay, right, partially right. So basically what happens is that, in a city, there's a lot of vehicular pollution, right? Now pollution can not only be through smokes or through toxic gases, there could also be industrial pollution, right? There are these factories and there's a lot of pollution. There is also something called a noise pollution, right? Now what happens is that, that's the reason why, there are these places like in Bombay, you have this RA. RA is like known as the green patch or the lungs of Mumbai. Why is it known as the lungs of Mumbai? Because it provides all the oxygen, most of the oxygen that the western side was western part of Mumbai people staying there, the RA is the nearby forest area. And the most surprising part is that it is within the city. For example, if this is the forest area here, from here you start having the high rises. So basically it is surrounded by the high rises, right? There's just this one area which leads to the Sanjay Gandhi National Park, where you find a lot of those leopards and all those stuff, right? But apart from that, remaining all the sides are surrounded by city. And these people staying in close proximity to RA, they receive a fresh supply of oxygen on a daily basis, on a moment-to-moment basis. So it's known as the lungs of Mumbai, right? So what it also does is that, all the smoke that comes out, from the city, all the toxic gases, all the fumes that comes out from the factories in the city, the forests normally are lush green, right? So what happens is that it absorbs or it soaks in most of the dust and the toxic air, toxic gases. It soaks in, and it soaks in not voluntarily, but it just happens involuntarily. It soaks in because, when it has to take carbon dioxide, right, for photosynthesis to happen, air also has a lot of these dust and toxic gases. So by default, these gets absorbed by the plants, by the leaves. So what's happening? The city area, the air is getting cleaned up. The air is getting cleaned up as everything is shifting towards the plants, towards the green plants. All the, air is getting shifted towards the green plants. And they in turn, when they release oxygen, it's coming to the city. All these happens, by default and involuntarily. Nature has been designed in such a way. So it checks pollution. And in city, you must have observed there's a lot of noise pollution, especially near the traffic signals, during the peak time, morning and evening office hours, school hours. So areas which are close by to forest, for example, if this is the forest area and there is noise pollution happening here, right? So most of the noise is also absorbed by the plants and the huge trees present. It acts as noise pollution absorbers. Just like we have shock absorbers, the leaves and the trees, huge trees, not small ones, they attract or they absorb all the noise. Certain decibel level, for example, there's a decibel level of 100. Forests will help reduce it to maybe 60 decibels. Right? So this is how it does, and all this exchange happens only if there is wind or there is mild air. Otherwise, the air will stay here in city and this will stay in the forest only. Right? So this is how it checks pollution. Now, coming to the third point, protects soil. Vatsala, can you emphasize on this? Vatsala?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you emphasize on the third point?
So like how the forest protects soil.
Yes, how does the soil protect soil?
So the roots of trees, they hold the soil together. So like in then land, yeah, so like it holds the soil together, because of which
Yeah, go ahead.
all landslides, right? Those like on mountains, it's like the trees, they hold the soil together. So when like landslides are like lesser.
Correct. That's one point. Correct. So basically what happens is that, for example, I'm just giving an example. This is a mountain, right? And there is this forest here, just above the mountain. Lot of trees. There's a forest here. And there is rain. With rainfall, what happens is that it washes away the precious soil. And let me tell you, the topsoil is the most precious. Topsoil has got the maximum number of nutrition. How? Because of the humus present, dead plants, dead animals, excreta of animals, birds, all of them lie here on the topsoil. So with rain, if the topsoil is getting washed off, that is a major loss for the entire habitat. Like here the mountain, is a habitat, mountain forest is a habitat. So it's a big loss. So what happens is that if the soil gets washed away, the root will get exposed. And once the root get exposed, it's like a vicious cycle. First the soil comes out, it gets washed away, right? Along with that soil, the root gets exposed because the soil has been washed out. Once the root is exposed, this, if there's a heavy wind or along with this rain only, this entire tree might get uprooted. So the tree would get uprooted. The tree would get uprooted. So, it's because it's the root which holds the tree tight and firmly on the soil. Correct? So this is like a vicious cycle. If the soil is eroded, the root would get exposed and the tree would get uprooted. Right? So what happens is that this will only happen when the trees are very far off from each other. Right? For example, there's a tree here and there's a tree here. So, in the middle, there is nothing to support this soil. So, this soil will erode when there is heavy rain. But in a forest, what happens, I'm taking the example, of a plain here. If there are trees which are in close proximity, they might be of different size. But, they are in close proximity. In case they are in close proximity, like good friends and like best friends, all these roots, are holding on to the soil, are holding on to each other very tightly. They're holding on to the soil very firmly. They're not like the best of friends. They're not letting anybody go. They're not allowing the soil to wash off even if there is heavy rainfall. With the heavy rainfall, what happens is that the effect of this raindrop gets minimized when it falls on the ground because there's so much of thick foliage here, this lush greenery here at the top. So by the time the raindrop falls at the ground, it is much smaller and much milder, so the soil will stay intact. The soil erosion will be much less. There could be little deposit of water, there would be a little flooding for a while, but at least the soil will not get washed away. Soil erosion will not happen. So basically it protects the soil. This is what the forests does to us. Otherwise, what happens is that if this was a plain, there was a tree here and there was a tree here. Who will save this much amount of soil? There's nobody to save. So with even little bit of rain, the entire soil will get washed away. And this is like precious soil. It will get washed away, right? And wherever there is a nearby slant or there's a river, all the muddy and the precious water will just go away and turn the entire river water muddy. The entire river will be muddy. And wherever this river leads to, if there is a village close by, the village will be entirely flooded. You know, it's very unfortunate because the trees were so far off, it could not hold on to this soil. It will go to this nearby slant, slide off the water, and it will flood the village. So actually it is not done good to anyone. Wish we had, you know, a few plants here in between also, then it could have caught the soil or gripped the soil well. Is it clear to all of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. All right, okay. Now we come to the third point, controls floods and droughts. So this is, you know, I have already discussed that how it protects the soil and how it causes floods. What are droughts? What are droughts or droughts? Who would answer this?
Where
Anna?
there is severe lack of water, ma'am.
Correct. So how can forest help in droughts?
Ma'am, it controls the water balance.
How does it control the water balance?
Ma'am, by preventing of it protects the soil, so the soil also stores water.
Correct. Very good. So remember the forest that we were discussing about where there are a lot of trees, right? Could be of different shapes and sizes, could be of different variety. And remember we were also saying that for a little while could be that, you know, water could remain a little stranded here. During that time, what happens is that the soil, you know, absorbs the water. That means the water percolates. There is percolation happening here. So the percolation means the water comes further deep under the soil, and there is something called a water table. There's something called the water table, groundwater table, right? So this is where the reserved water are kept in the earth. So all the water would actually lead here, and this will form a reservoir of water. So it will not allow drought to happen. Whenever there is drought, the underwater table is filled with water. Right? This is how most of the trees take through their taproot system. They take water also during the summer season or during, you know, insufficient rain or during droughts. So because there is a lot, the underwater table is filled up with water, the groundwater table. So it will prevent drought. I'm sure, you know, you must have seen videos or documentaries where, you know, they would show this is like an agricultural land, and that agricultural land, the top layer of the soil is totally cracked. That is known as drought. This is crack. Why is there a crack on the soil? Because there is no water. There is no groundwater also. But what do the forests do? They replenish the groundwater so that, you know, it can, through a capillary system, it can send the water back to the soil. Then again the cracks will fill up and it will become like a normal agricultural land. So this is through capillary action. The water will be sent back upwards. Through percolation, the water came down, and through capillary action, the water can be again sent up. If not in the soil, to the soil level, but if you plant a plant here, you know, its roots can absorb water from here. Right? Is this clear to all? Now
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Now coming to the last point, how does it control rain and temperature? Right? Arna, will you be able to discuss this? How does it control rain and temperature?
I don't think I will be able to answer this.
Okay, who else wants to take it up? This is a very interesting point. Mana, do you want to discuss on?
Can it be because of the balance of water and air?
Yeah, just probe a little further. Just go ahead, take this point a little further. You'll be able to answer.
I don't know, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So basically, again, coming back to the same picture, this is the forest with a lot of trees, right? There's a lot of tree here. Lot of trees means what? Lot of trees would mean the number of leaves are very high, right? And if we say that the leaves are high, then what does that mean? We know the function of the leaves is exchange of gases, and there's a lot of transpiration. That means water. Water is, water escapes from the leaf and it goes in the atmosphere, in the air. So all the evaporation that is happening, all the water that is escaping from the plants, where will it go? It will go here, right, and cause clouds, all the water vapor. And once these clouds become heavy, there will be rainfall. As simple as that. This is how, it increases the amount of rain. It causes good rain. You will find, places which are, very close by to forest areas or to hilly areas. They will have a lot of rainfall, those areas. Especially if you have seen the northeastern belt of India, Assam, Unmana will be able to tell, northeast areas receives a lot of rainfall. Mawsyngram, Cherrapunji, they receive the highest. Yes?
Ma'am, can you repeat?
See, I said wherever there are maximum number of plants or trees, the number of leaves will be high. If the leaves are high, then the transpiration, what is transpiration? Transpiration is when the water from the leaves escape, to the atmosphere. After photosynthesis, oxygen and water are released, no? So that water will go to the space and form clouds, and that in turn will cause rainfall. So areas which have a lot of forests, lot of mountain, like the northeast area, they receive a lot of rainfall.
Yes, ma'am.
And also, because of this water vapor, that's going up, because of that, it gives a very soothing temperature. It cools the temperature. That's the reason why, people would always want to take a vacation or a break somewhere near either the forest or the mountains. Because the area in and around the mountain or this forest area is always very cool and soothing. Why? Because the number of trees are more. It causes a lot of transpiration and it cools off the air. As simple as that. Correct? Is this point clear to all?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.